Please come to the stage now. Sorry.
Finally.
We have a long intro for our celebrity designers here.
Don't be verklempt. It's all good.
Hi, everybody. I'm
Wel-
so excited to be here.
Welcome to Columbus.
Well,
We give you water too.
Okay, good.
Just one bottle though, so that you don't sober up too much. So you can really tell us all your secrets. She has a mic, yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for coming to Columbus. We are so excited to have you.
Thank you for having us.
So before we ask her all like the deep questions about her secret sauce, I personally want to know who your favorite celebrity you've worked with so far is.
Beyonce, because she's Beyonce. I mean,
Beyonce.
I have a tricky history with Beyonce. I've done a lot of projects with her. I've done a lot of projects with her, and some have worked and some haven't. But that moment when she wore my crown, I just like got my life, and it was just emotional and amazing. She's been my number one person that I've always wanted to dress because she's just the epitome of just an amazing, empowering woman. So, yeah, that was my moment.
So from that moment, going back to kind of your start, can you give us a little bit about your history?
Okay, so I went to Pratt, little competition. I have a degree in fashion design, and just like you guys, same type of thing, but I hated to sew, so I started to make metal accessories. And yeah, it's all basically because I hated sewing. It was just like, you know, if you're like one little inch off or you have to rip it, seam rip, I just hated it. I was really bad at tailoring, and I went to accessories and didn't want to change my major. I didn't want to be in school for longer than I needed to be. So I made the concept of like a wearable accessory. So like your portfolio has to be perfect when you go out. So what are you going to do if you're going to do accessories? And that's how it was born.
Was there anything that you would change about some of the first steps that you made in your career?
Okay, so my first fashion show, I literally thought like I'd have a fashion show and like my career would be made. Like I'd blow up and that would be it. And I spent a lot of money that I really didn't have thinking like, oh, this is my first New York Fashion Week and everything's gonna change. And it really didn't change for like probably 5 years after that. So that would probably be the biggest thing I would change. I do not regret, like I worked in the industry. I actually didn't have my brand right. I graduated in 2005. But I worked in it. I actually graduated on a Friday and started working on a Monday, and I've literally been working ever since. And I was designing handbags. My first job out of school was Rockaware, and it was really cool back then. So I promise. Jay-Z still owned it at the time, and I really just wanted to learn the industry, and then I realized after designing from like everyone from Rockaware, then like Target and Walmart and Kenneth Cole and Juicy Couture and all these people, I just was like, I'm making all these companies so much money that I need to do it for myself. So I'm still working on that, but you know, yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. One of the things I know many designers have so many challenges with, in the beginning is like that capital. It's like you're first starting out your business and, really changing the mindset from working for somebody else and like you said, making them so much money, giving your intellectual property to another company versus really putting your entrepreneur hat on. Do you feel like that's for everyone? And then if it is or it isn't, how do you feel like, how hard of a decision was that for you to make?
To me, it wasn't really a hard decision. It was something that I knew just had to happen. Handbags definitely paid for my brand. I refused to kind of sell out. I've had some offers. I was telling you guys earlier, like I was working for a company, a handbag license company, and they wanted my brand. And he told me that, he would give me 3 years of salary to own my name for life. And I was like, no. So, there's been a lot of instances like that, but I've been fully self-funded, but I sacrificed everything else. Like, I could have, expensive cars and, wear expensive clothes all the time, but everything just goes towards, metal and chain and paying for everything. My website, everything. So, but I own everything myself. So, no one can take that away. And it's hard. I literally, Vacations are non-existent. Now my vacations are pretty much like paid for. Like I recently went to Mexico. I don't know if you guys follow my Instagram, but we were at the most beautiful waterfalls like in the entire world in Chiapas. Yeah. And I went to Tuscany, a photographer. I was able to bring my fiance to Tuscany, and we stayed in a villa for a week, and all the photographers basically paid to just shoot my stuff all week. So now it's starting to pay off, but I haven't had any of those luxuries for like, 5-10 years. It's a lot of sacrifice, a lot. And it's not
How
for
did
everybody.
you decide and like figure out how to work with this metal the way you do? I mean, I just think you've got so many interesting techniques in your clothes.
Trial and error. There's no books on this stuff. I literally just like have some ideas and I try to work it out. I had one collection that I used like window screen, and it was beautiful, but I'll never do it again because it literally like little particles would be like stuck in my feet, it'd cut it up and it didn't hold up. I would never do that again, but it was cool looking.
It was the worst.
It was the worst. It was really bad. Like I was actually working on it at my parents' house and they're like, we still find those little pieces, and I'm like, sorry. But yeah, it's just self-taught, trial and error. If you look at my early collections, they're very stringy and like now probably just throwaway, I've taken a lot of pieces and repurposed them because I knew I needed to be bigger and better. I remember once I met with Nicki Minaj's stylist and he told me okay, so we want you to do this thing for the VMAs, but she's like, oh, the chain girl, all her stuff looks the same. And I was like, oh, excuse me? I was very offended because to me, everything looks different because I know the technique, but then I realized, okay, I need to try different things, and I took that criticism and continued to work with her after that, but yeah.
So I guess my personal question next would be then, just to your point, is, how do you balance what you think other people want versus what you believe is what you want it to be, right?
I follow my gut. Here's a perfect example. I recently dressed Cardi for her birthday, and yeah, so I live in Hollywood. I'm from New York, and I decided to take a 2-week trip to my parents' house because they live on 10 acres of land in the country, and no one bothers me, no emails, they wait on me, it's great. So I went home and I was working on stuff and I was doing all this stuff, and my parents what? I'm like, Dad, can you set up this in the garage so I can spray paint and do all this stuff? And they're like, this is overkill. I'm like, just trust me. So before I left, I have a vinyl cutter, and I designed a stencil on Illustrator, and then I made the stencil, and I was like, no, this is gonna work, and I knew leopard was a trend, and I was like, how am I gonna make leopard in metal? And he was even skeptical, oh.
I didn't get it.
Yeah, he's like, no, you don't need to do leopard, and I was like, no, I need to do leopard, that's very trendy right now. So I went and I did it, and it turned out beautiful, and literally I finished the whole outfit, and I have a couple other leopard pieces, but she wore it the next week because I was like, this looks like Cardi, and then she wore it, and she actually handpicked it. I saw the stylist out in LA, and he was like, oh, I was like, thank you so much for putting it on Cardi, and he's like, oh, well, she handpicked it. She didn't. We had other stuff in mind for her, to be honest, but she wanted to wear that. So it's always kind of like making trends, but also knowing when to kind of not follow them, but make them my own. Yeah. So it's kind of I just go with my gut, and that also goes to who I want to work with. I also kind of use my gut. I always ask myself, is this going to make you look good? Is it going to make me look good, or we make each other look good? And if it's only going to make them look good, I just don't do it. So, yeah.
Have you ever thought about taking your brand to mass market so that it's produced
Well, I have
overseas?
my handbag line that's produced overseas, and I did that with the purpose of having items that were more affordable and kind of my fans and supporters can wear, because my pieces are handmade, so they can be $1,000, and that's why the celebrities love it so much. So I guess my training in kind of the mass market world, I'm like, well, I have to have something that works for the masses, and that's really what I make the most money from and sell, because celebrities don't want to pay for anything. Yeah. It's just, they have all the money and they don't want to spend it. So.
So is your collection all made here? How is that?
Yeah, between New York and LA, besides the handbags, yeah, everything is made we make it.
So you're sourcing the materials,
Yeah,
you're designing.
and that's half the battle, sourcing, especially when you're working in a very niche category. I'm always finding new things to kind of repurpose and, you know, like raw material that I can remake, like the mesh and stuff, like looks like chain fishnet, like every little piece is linked together. Actually, so we did the LNAO video with J-Lo, and she then wanted 26 outfits for the Billboard Awards.
26 outfits, guys.
And it was all, and it was that mesh material with
That's
like,
it.
wigs and stuff. And Sire's like, he's like, no, I can do it. I'm like, Sire, you got to come to LA. So I had already moved to LA. I'm like, what? He's like, my husband doesn't want me to come. I'm like, no, you need to come to LA. And he flew with 300 pounds of chain, and we individually linked. It all comes from spools of chain. Nothing is pre-made, and we linked it all together and did it, in a matter of a week?
Yeah, it was no sleep, just.
Yeah, and we watched Living Single. I got an Airbnb.
Yep.
It was really fun. But that's, I think the key to work is like you have to find a way to make it fun. So as someone was asking me today, like, oh, where do you work? Where's your studio? I'm like, well, I have a studio, but I also like to work on my couch or someone else's couch or my parents' couch because I work 20 hours a day, take a nap, and I'm just linking. So it doesn't feel like work as much.
So sorry, you kind of learned how to do this with her?
Oh,
How do
boy.
you come in?
When I first started, I was horrible. And
He was.
it requires a great attention to detail that doesn't naturally come to me. So I had to learn how to, first of all, like hold the pliers correctly, because you're pretty much in your lap with a bunch of chain, and you have to find a way to make everything work together, and making sure the links are super tightly closed, all those things. It took me a while to find my rhythm. But I feel like once I found my rhythm, it was easier for me to learn from her. It just took me a while.
We brought on some different interns along the way, and it's kind of funny because he can teach them better than I can. Because they're like, I try to explain to them, like, I don't know. Like, I guess their brain just works differently, but he's able to teach them, and they get it right away. It's a different process. But
Yeah, our brains work completely differently. Even though we're both super creative, our brains work differently. And the way that she'll show me something, I'm like, I can't do it that way. But I know how it's supposed to look how it's supposed to look in the end. So I can kind of say, okay, well, she'll hold it in this hand and like swoop under, and that does not work for me. It doesn't feel natural. So I'll do it a different way and get the same result. And it's just a little bit easier, I think, because I don't have to come up with a way to do something. I can say, okay, this works, this feels better. And then someone else, because she's like an alien, like it's like her brain is ridiculous. And so
everyone says that.
no, but seriously, so if we have an intern, it's easier for them to understand how my brain works because she's like this master creative, like it's ridiculous. And it's hard to learn from someone that has all these amazing things in their head and has to figure out, like she said, there's no rule book. So she's teaching herself how to do something, and she has to master it before she can teach it to you. So
Well, I think the moral of the story, to give some direction, is like you don't have to follow everyone else. You can do what you want to do. You can pave your own way. You can use like new materials and new ideas and create something, because it's an interesting, because most of the I realized when I was in New York, I had a lot of press, like the magazines and stuff are there, but that's not really like, my client base is like celebrities. So when I moved to LA, I was able to work hand in hand with the stylists that were kind of like doing pulls before and stuff like that. But like, I kind of realized that they expect like a different level of work, and like they came into my showroom, like J-Lo stylist came into my showroom, and she was like I was asking her about, oh, what do you think about PR in LA and stuff. She's like, no, girl, do not get PR. Everyone knows who you are. If they don't know who you are, they'll find you. Like just stay small. Beyonce's people came in, they were like, stay small, that's why we like you, you're exclusive and whatever. And I'm like, well, maybe I should be mass, maybe I should sell out, And it's really like, because I have such specialty product, and because the product is what makes everything special, like that's what's most important. So if you believe in your product and you keep elevating your product, like you can really be successful with having something unique. Like people ask me like, what's your best advice? I'm like, have good product. If you don't have good product, you have nothing else, you know? So like paving your own way, like he did with working with me and what he's working on now and everything, it's just so important.
So I'd love to hear a little bit more about some of the entertainment and the production that you're working on and how that kind of goes hand in hand with Laurel. And are we ready to talk about it, or are they still secret projects?
Well, I can talk about it, but I self-produce things. So right now I'm working on 3 talk shows all at once. Originally, I wanted to do scripted content, but it just took so much financial commitment, and anything that I'm doing, I didn't go to school for. I just have an idea, and I want to make it happen. Like, I've seen so many people fall through the cracks with being idea people and not executors. So I can't be that person that's like, oh, I have this great idea, and every time you see me, it's something different. I need to actively be working on something. So I taught myself how to use the camera and what lighting, you know. I always say YouTube is college. When you're trying to learn something new, like there's so many resources there for if you want to just pick up something, and because you have to invest in yourself and with respect to the craft. Like, I won't call myself a photographer or a videographer because I haven't put in that work and I haven't done the training that they have. But I can say this is something that I need to do, and I don't have the budget to hire someone, so let me start trying to get it together now.
Yeah.
And that's what I do with my creative things.
And your event space.
Okay.
Let me tell you, guys. So I'm gonna say because he's gonna be shy. He launched an event space like smack in the middle of Times Square in New York, and like seriously, it's amazing. So I wasn't there for the launch. I was in LA, and I came a week ago, 2 weeks ago. I came to New York and I saw it, and I was so proud of him. Like, you know, for him, this is kind of similar if you think about it. He was doing these productions, and he was like renting Airbnbs and different event spaces, and he was like, I know what I need for my space, and then he decided to have his own event space because he saw what people need. So he has like amazing lighting and like the right like screens, like everything, and it's like in freaking Times Square in Manhattan, and it's just amazing, and I'm so proud of him.
Thank you.
It's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And he's always stressed out, but it's cool because he's used to stress because that's what it is. Yeah.
Did we hear how you guys met?
No.
Yeah, that's
No.
what I was just going to ask that.
So your dynamic is very
By the
amazing.
way, we also like lived together in Brooklyn for a little bit, and that's where he really got his training.
Yeah.
And like we really wanted to strangle each other, but it was like I wouldn't trade that time for the world. I mean, that was like really like.
It was
he's,
boot
like-
camp.
Yeah, it was boot camp.
It was work boot camp and also relationship boot
Yeah,
camp.
because mind you, also that was during my last full-time job. It was the era of like when Amber Rose walked in my show, and like when Nikki started wearing my stuff, when I think stuff really started blowing up, and I was like working in the city 9 to 5. That was the company that tried to buy my name for 3 years of salary, and then. So I'd work a 9 to 5, and I'd come home, and I would take a nap for an hour, and then I'd work till 3, 4 in the morning every day, work all day on the weekends, because it was just a demand for it, and I had to have fashion stuff, and that's when he was living with me. But
Yeah.
before that, he randomly, like on Twitter, was like, oh, if you ever need any help, and then one day I needed help, and then he came, and then eventually we started working together, and he was like, I had an apartment with an extra bedroom, and he was like, I was like, oh, come stay with me, and that's honestly, like, if we didn't have that 24/7, like, working together thing, the brand would not be where it was, because it was just, like, complete sacrifice and just craziness. Like, I had a sponsorship with, like, 5 Hour Energy. I was literally, like, living on those in my car.
Oh, yes.
Like, every morning I'd have one, afternoon I'd have one. It was crazy. It was very unhealthy, but it's what you got to do sometimes.
Yeah, I always tell people that, because sometimes I'll have friends that will send me Instagrams of like people that have tried to knock us off or those kinds of things. And I always say, like, I'm not worried about them because no one is gonna put in the hours that she put in, like, in the training, you know, because you can see different things technically where it's like, okay, you really tried to do this, but you missed the mark here. And so it's like, even with that happening, that's why you have to continue to innovate, because.
But that's the thing about speaking of training and being in a design school, yes, a lot of what like I learned happened after school, but like what happened in school was so important because I remember I had a professor that said, you don't need to know how to tailor or how to sew, but you need to know how to tell somebody how to do that. So when I'm doing these handbags and stuff, I'm in the factories in China telling them like, this is how you need to sew it. Like I know how to do it, I'm just not good at it, but I'm like, this is how you have to do it. And this is, you know, you have to get that training, and that really made such a big difference. And I think that's really what sets me apart from other designers now, because I have that traditional training and I know the knowledge of fashion. Like I took costume history because I was in New York. We had classes like in the Met, you know, they took outfits out in white gloves, and that really, you know, impacted me in everything that I did. And also because it was a design school and not necessarily like just a fashion school, they really told me like, do what you love. Like so my senior thesis was a fashion show, and I won best collection by a critic that was like a buyer for Bloomingdale's, but I got a B in the class, which like, so it kind of shows you, you know, like do what you need to do, and you know, be yourself, be inspired by whatever you're inspired by, and tackle that. But they didn't say, no, you can't do that. They didn't make me sew like these crazy gowns. They still let me do it. My professor was like, well, you're not really doing any pattern making. You're just kind of linking chain. But he still let me do it. Yeah. But then I still won. So, you know.
It all worked out.
Go with your gut.
So interestingly enough, when we were, you know, we start seeking our headline designer for the upcoming year as soon as the week is over, right? So we've been watching your brand we tried to get you last year and we couldn't because you were too busy for us, I think. And then this year we said we have to get Laurel, right? So we were so excited. So many of the board members, so many of our high-level volunteers that are with us year-round for our year-round programming have been watching you. And something some of us have noticed is that you don't really like to be the face of your brand. You don't like to have your face everywhere. So my question is, you don't have to tell us necessarily why if you don't feel comfortable, but I guess, you know, why do you think it's important to have your face be the face of your brand, or to not have your personal image be part of your brand?
Well, for me, like I said before, a product is most important. So that is, you know, my priority over everything. I force myself to post things here and there, but for me, it's just like my product. Like I've had people like straight up think I was like a different race. Like they're like, oh, okay. Like they're, you know, I think that just number one, product is most important. I should be out there more. I think events like this is great to be able to, you know, kind of talk to everyone and you know, be face to face with people. But I still think product is number one.
Yeah. So when you started, you know, you were working at a mass market brand. Like,
Yeah.
what was that moment where you said, okay, I'm gonna stop doing this, because it seemed like
Yeah.
you had a good career.
Yeah.
You could have just rolled.
I mean,
right along.
honestly, right now I could be living in New York City making like at least $250,000 just chilling.
Like
But
what was that
okay,
moment?
So right when the recession hit, I guess it was like 2008, 2009. I had a program that I did with Target. So the license company I worked for had the Sportsac brand, and I did a Le Sportsac for Target. So it was like the ripstop with like the prints. So I made this program that literally like every season you just have to update the prints, and I would design all the prints, and it was like an end cap. I had to literally design like what they call planograms, so you literally could see like every silhouette like laid out on like what a Target end cap would look like. And the program was like I said, one end cap, one season was like $1 million. So you do that 4 times a year, and it was only one little program I worked on. And I made it like clockwork. All you had to do was like update the prints, maybe a silhouette or two, and then they called me in the office one Friday and they were like, oh, we're letting you go. And I'm like, but we just had a meeting like yesterday that said that, you know, we had the Karl Lagerfeld license and the Calvin Klein, and they're like, oh, well, the Target's paying the bills. But like these licenses were just kind of there for show because like those handbags weren't selling and stuff. And they were like, oh, we have to let you go. And I'm like, but you just said like my programs were like paying the bills for the company. And I just couldn't believe it. Like I was like, what? And I just felt so heartbroken. I remember it was like around Valentine's Day, and I was like with my ex, and I was just crying because I was like, I thought this was gonna be my life. And I was like, eventually it was a few days, I gotta get over this. And I realized that, you know, these companies don't care about you, you know, they just don't. And they care about the bottom line. I found out later that they hired someone basically to just make the prints and update it. She was cheaper than me, and that's all they care about. They care about saving $20,000, $50,000, whatever it is, and then that was it. And it was from then. It was funny in that company. I guess I kind of knew it ahead of time because before that I didn't really know what PR was. Like for some reason, I was actually the first class that was required to have computer-aided drawing, and they didn't really teach fashion PR. I think, is that required now? PR type to learn about that?
We have some business classes.
Right, like that wasn't required where I was, but so I was talking to the girl who did like in-house PR, and she was like, I had made earrings when I was in college. Like I didn't have any money to I went to take summer class, didn't have any money to stay, so my parents were like, you need to make your own money. So long story short, I sold earrings on the street in Soho, in front of the Adidas store for like $5 and $10 every weekend. Me and my friends would go out, and I was showing her the earrings, and she was like, oh, like I'm gonna give you my list. And she's like, can I have your grandma's cookie recipe? Because I made like chocolate cookies for the company. And she gave me her list. So I kind of had started with that. And then once I was let go, I just knew this wasn't for me.
It's just a moment.
Yeah, and you know, you give so much to these companies, and being a designer, it's like creativity and passion is what fuels you. And then when someone doesn't appreciate that, you're like, what? So I just knew I had to do it for myself. And here we are.
So what's your favorite thing that you've made? Like your favorite design? I want to ask you too.
Do you have one?
I don't know.
You don't have
Maybe
some?
the crown J-Lo wore, because it was weird when I went to LA. Like they were on stuff I made. Like this was like 2018, and they were on stuff I made in like 2015, and it was like brand new to them because I was new to LA, but that crown was just something that was very grand. Maybe that one, or maybe the first crown that I made that is my logo and also my tattoo. So that was the first crown that I made for the Smithsonian Institute of Art. And yeah, just the crowns, I think, because that's where I feel like I'm a true artist. It's my sculpture, and yeah.
So Sire, what's your favorite piece, Iris?
I really love the dress that J-Lo wore in the El Niño video because it's like glitter. I really love the way that shines. But this is a really horrible question because it's like choosing between your children.
They're all your babies.
Yeah.
So wait, for an example of like, so he would maybe like link all the center panels and stuff, and then I would kind of put it together. So some of these things are very much teamwork.
Yeah. I would say, see, this is difficult. This is torture.
We don't got all day though.
Okay. So I'm gonna say the Payette coat, the floor length Payette coat that we have. To me, it was like the first thing that we made that looked like metal fabric. The way that it fell on the body and like laid on the body, and it just felt like metal fabric.
Is that for sale now, or where is that?
Oh, for sale.
I don't like to sell anything. That's part of my problem. But that's in LA. Like that's one of the things that's cool. I do like rentals because have someone rent something for like $500 and I get it back and I get my babies back. So that's really cool. But Sire's been kind of integral in saying like, no, do that to the floor. And I'm like, but I don't want to do that. Just do it to the floor. You need to be bigger, better. So he's been a great motivation for me because somebody want to make something short, or he's like, no, make it long. It has to be long. And I'm like, oh, okay.
I think the most interesting part about our relationship is that she's the boss, but a lot of my job is managing her. And
Oh snap! Truth comes out.
She's kidding because she knows this. It's like she likes to say she's she says, boss me around, because she has so much going on up here and we have so much work to do. So it's like, okay, do this first. And like she said, sometimes because we are on time constraints, it's like, let's take the easy way out, and it's metal, so we can make it a cocktail dress. And I'm like, but it's not as impactful as if we make it floor length. Yeah. And then so those are the kind of back and forth that we go through.
And the other thing that, in regards to our relationship, that's been very important is like, he helps me, obviously, but he's also a really great friend. And I mean, honestly, he's like family. You know, I literally, like, I might get emotional, but he literally, like, I would not be here without him. There's been, like, ups and downs in my personal life, and he's, you know, been there for me. And I think that that's important to have people on your team that, like, really love you and care about you and push you. And sometimes you want to be like, okay, I'm done. But it's really just, like, a family relationship, and I think that that's important.
Has everyone seen the Alexander McQueen movie?
Oh my God!
So
it's the best documentary ever.
When I was watching the Alexander McQueen movie in his early years, it felt a lot like Us, because it's just creating a team of people that really believes in what you're doing, and I think I'm more protective over the people we bring in than she is, because up until recently, I don't think that she realized that she was as known or as, I'll just say known as she is. And so I can kind of smell the BS, you know, and it's very important to have people that want to come in to help you, not people that want to leech off of you. And so, because I'm kind of...
We've been through those, too.
Oh, yes. And so I'm always looking out. Yeah. And I would rather sometimes not have an intern and we pick up the slack than to have to sit and think about someone's intentions, especially at this level. It just... Sometimes your self-perception is not the way other people perceive you. And Laurel's very humble. And so she's just like, she sees herself like, I'm not where I want to be. And so she's always looks towards the end and sometimes forsaking where she is now. But other people see where you are now. They don't know what your end looks like or what your vision looks like. Right. So as a friend, I mean, we're really like brother and sister, like really.
Or husband, wife, or like mom and dad, depending on the day.
Yeah, our relationship takes on many forms. But I think that it's so important to have someone that can tell you about yourself. Yeah. Because when you're around yes people, bad things happen. Yeah. And I'm not a yes person. Yeah. So I'm like...
When I'm like, if I have like a down moment, like, for example, like I made 2 costumes for On the Run 2 for Beyonce, and she didn't end up wearing them, I think because she couldn't really, like she was twerking and stuff. So I think she really couldn't perform in them. But he was like, it's okay, we're gonna get her another day. We already got her, you know, like he's the one that kind of like, I'll let you be depressed today, but tomorrow what are we doing next? You know, he's very good about checking me with that stuff.
I think that's an interesting thing to talk about when you're beginning your career. It's interesting to really evaluate that throughout your career, because now to all of us, it's like she's made it, like she's there, right? Like she's where So I have a couple more questions. The first one is, how do you define your success? And the second thing is that I think everybody wants to hear is, what can we expect to see on the runway Saturday?
Okay, so success to me is like being like a Gucci, a Ralph Lauren, like a super, like everyone knows who you are. You get it in stores, you know, a household name. I know I'm known now, but just to be like in the history books, you know, if someone wrote like a recent history of like hip hop history, fashion history, I'd probably be in it. But like, you know, I want it to be like y'all are seeing me in your textbooks. That's what I really want to see. Then of course financially, you know, and on the runway this weekend, the theme is money, and it's not just money as in like oh, look, they're wearing expensive clothes, but the idea of manifesting, you know, like things that you want with yourself, like you want abundance, you want, like, you know, you want certain things. So just kind of being like, there's a song by LaKayla, 47, like, I've got money, and I saw her perform recently in Hollywood, and she said, you know, like, you might not have it now, but let's talk about it. Say you've got money, so you bring it to you. So it's kind of just the idea of like abundance and, you know, just lucks and, you know, the power of manifesting things.
I love that.
Tommy, I see you over there. What are you doing over there? Are you doing a quick question there? What is it, lightning round?
Lightning round. I have a lightning round of questions. Are you ready?
Yeah.
This is how we really get to know who you are. Are you ready?
Quick,
This is for
rapid
both of
fire?
you. You have to answer really quickly, okay?
Okay.
First thing you do in the morning.
Check my Twitter or check my covet.
Oh, covet, yeah. I go to the bathroom.
I usually check my scores on
I
covet.
do.
What's the last thing you do at night?
Check my covet.
Go to the bathroom.
Tell Siri to set an alarm.
Perfect. Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
I'm an addict, like legit. Lamar knows where he at. I'm like Starbucks. Can we go to Starbucks?
We have what do we have? Staffs.
I don't know what that is.
It's local.
It's really strong coffee.
Yes.
Lamar, you got to hook her up this
Yeah,
weekend.
hug me up
Staffs.
tomorrow.
Take her to stuff.
Red wine or white wine?
White
White.
wine.
I know. We were
That
drinking
bottle.
it.
Moscato,
Polished.
no. It's real
And-
classy. Moscato.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Yes. All right, that's all the questions I have.
I actually kind of judge like when I have to deal with business people and they don't have an iPhone because I want to see that that message is delivered. Okay.
And did you read it? And
I
wanna know
don't
when
want
you're
the
typing
green
back.
bubbles. No green bubbles.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No.
But like iPhone plays games. Like sometimes when you're gonna respond to somebody, if your message is really long, the bubbles go away. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah.
I just want to know it's delivered. If you ignored me, it's a problem.
So we have a couple of our local designers in the audience, Columbus-based designers. Can you raise your hands? Who's here? We have Juan Ferreros,
We have
Akili.
Akili.
How about you guys come
Juan.
up,
Yeah.
come up
Who
to the
else do
stage
we
for a
have?
second?
Yes.
Come
girl.
on.
Juan.
Who else is here? Is
Juan is
Gerardo here?
representing Chanel tonight.
Maya? No.
As you can see, head
Chanel,
to toe.
baby.
That outfit is fabulous.
Yes. I feel a little like underdressed now.
And Akili, where's Akili? Are there any other Fashion Week designers that are showing Saturday here today? No? Okay.
I think I saw a video of you showing your stuff. It's dope. Hey. It was like sequins, right? Like sequins, like. Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Hello.
Hello.
So Juan and Akili have both been part of Fashion Week. I don't know whose mic it is. Maybe one of the new ones? Maybe? Maybe not. Is it mine? Is it mine? I don't think so. So they've been a part of Fashion Week year over year this is our 9th year with Fashion Week Columbus. And Akili, I think, showed 3 years ago? 4 years
Yes,
ago?
2014 and
2000.
2010.
2010. So he is part of our inaugural year. Is that right? Yes.
Yeah, the
Only
first year.
16 when he
Yes.
showcased in 2010.
Yes, and he's since showcased in New York. Where else have you shown?
New York, Atlanta, and once in LA.
Awesome. And then Juan has also showcased in so many places, internationally and here in Columbus. And this is your 4th year with Fashion Week?
Number 3.
Number 3. So
Did you do
3rd
the
year.
high tea?
He did do the high tea.
I saw that too. Dope.
Yeah, thank you.
Keep watching.
And he's shown in Peru, he's shown in DC, he's shown in New York.
But actually, before at USA, I show my clothes in different countries: Argentina, Colombia, Peru, Ecuador, and in USA in different states.
Oh.
So Juan is really known for, when he initially started his brand, he was really known for a lot of pageantry, like very over-the-top gowns. You did highball with really beautiful costumes. You've done some crowns too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so you'll be best friends by the end of Fashion Week on Saturday because you'll be backstage in the heat of the madness of all the designers, but you'll get a sneak peek at each other's collections. And we would love to kind of hear a little bit from Juan and Akili on why you choose Fashion Week Columbus. Not just that you're here and you live within our area, but then why Fashion Week? There's so many other production associations within our city. So why do you choose to do Fashion Week year over year?
I choose Fashion Week. This is my third time choosing Fashion Week. Why did I choose it? It's an amazing platform for Columbus. There's a lot of amazing designers that come from out of Columbus, out of Ohio, period. This is actually my 51st fashion show. So I've done,
what did you say?
Yeah, this is my 51st fashion show.
You said 5'1"?
5'1". I started when I was 16, so
Yes.
I was in high school living like a Hannah Montana double
How
life.
old are you?
25.
Hannah Montana double
That's a lot
life.
of fashion shows.
Yeah. So now I'm able
That's
to
amazing.
choose them,
Congratulations.
But
Sorry I had to take your drink.
so
for
it's
that.
an amazing platform, especially being from Columbus and working with other amazing designers. So I love it for that. If that answers it.
Juan?
Before I live in Columbus, I live in other cities in USA. I live in Boston, New York. I live in Washington, D.C., Virginia. And I working in different platforms. For me, the best is Columbus. I only want to say thank you for the people. The people is amazing. It's so friendly. It's give big opportunity. I only say in my life, in these 3 years here in Columbus, thank you to groups. Fashion with Columbus and Highball. For this, both give me the opportunity and understand how I am and how is my work. And only say thank you, Columbus, for I like it so much.
So are your collections both all ready to go for Saturday, or are you still putting the final touches on?
It's almost ready. I working so hard for this collection. Actually, today in the night I finish.
You go.
Yeah, I just got back to Columbus today. I go to Central State in Dayton, so I'll be finished today, tomorrow. But it's beautiful. I love it. So I've been back every weekend. So I had like one of my friends that I just met. She's like, "Why are you always gone? Why weren't you here for homecoming?" I'm like, I got some stuff I'm going to do in Columbus. But now she's like on my Instagram, like, "Where are you at?" I'm like, "Oh, I have a fashion show."
my internet
It's 53rd.
teacher coming out and me to ask if you're done. So
We're not done.
Procrastinating. Right.
We put a lot of work.
So you both heard about Laurel and her journey with Sire and really being able to trust one person with your brand over the years. And so do either of you have somebody like Sire that you trust so much, not just with your business, but really with producing your product?
As far as trust, love, I have like a huge relationship. Like, I create from my mom's house. I started when I was in high school, so I didn't have money to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go get a studio. So, I work in the front room or bedroom or wherever I have space to lay out fabric and put a machine up and have girls come over. So it's always been my mother that's been super supportive and take me to shows and let me go do stuff. And even when I was 16, 17, 18 and like trying to do stuff that was 21 and up, like I was just telling somebody, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll go to shows and I'm able to drink. Like I used to be able to go to shows and they say like, get from the backstage, these girls getting dressed. I'm like, oh, it's just boobs. My mom has been very supportive, letting random people come to the house or taking me to interviews when I didn't have a license or just getting me from Central State to come down here to go to this and have the whole weekend to sew, or before I was able to do zippers, like she did all my zippers. And even now, I'll be like, hey, you trying to do the zipper like for me? Like,
I still don't know how to do zippers.
So like, you know, there's like, my mom is like super supportive, my family. But as far as like business and, you know, now I have like an email, so I'm like, hey, Mom, can you handle that email for me? Or can you like, you know, hop on and respond to this person? Or, hey, how do I respond back to this? Like my mom is keeps me on track and makes sure I stay grounded or stay, you know, connected or whatever. Shout out to my mama.
Is she here?
Is it
Right here.
Oh my God,
With the
stand up.
Jahi by Achilles shirt.
Where's Mom?
Take a bow.
She has his brand T-shirt on, by the way.
That's so
That's not a commercial.
Shout out to you,
There
Mom.
you go. Yeah.
Show us the
Here's
shirt.
Jahi shirt. Come on, show 'em.
Uh-oh.
Yes.
Our modeling debut. There it is. Nice.
Love it. Shout out to supportive parents. I
Yeah,
love
see
that.
that?
And Juan, what about you?
It's so many for say. For me, my word is very important. I respect so much the fashion industry. I respect my work, but the most important for me, I respect and the people help me all the time, 24 hours, 7 days in my life. It's my partner, Bill. No? He's the other half. I making, I create, I have so many ideas, but Bill is the support all the time for me. I all the time say I want more. He say no, it's step by step. No, but
To tell
Settle
us about
down, Mom,
himself.
he said.
There you go.
I thinking in this life in the fashion industry, not have limit. All the time is the life for fashion change every day, and change for every people. Every people is totally different than the other. So the designer need refresh the mind every moment. This is my life. This is why I think. And thank you for the opportunity
We love
every day.
Juan. And can Bill stand up so everybody can see the gem? We love Bill.
Yes, supportive partners.
Should we do some audience questions?
Yeah.
Yeah? Well, first of all, these designers up here, do you have questions for Laurel? I mean, you're on the same stage as Laurel Dewitt. Do you have any questions for her?
Okay, so first off, I am like a big fan. Like, I love your stuff. I low-key just want to say that I had like a lot of questions, but like you're like very successful. You know, in my eyes, like, you know, I feel like as artists and designers, like you put so much work and heart and love into your own work, you don't really get to see like the impact you may put like on other people or people that's even watching you. So like, you know, you as an artist, like I don't even want to say a designer, because you know, you're not working on like fabric, boom, 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 like you're like really creative, like, you know, to take that step out and do something different that nobody else is doing. I really respect you for that. Like you're really, really dope.
Oh my God.
Both of you.
Thank you.
Both of you.
I think it takes another artist / designer to recognize that, because I like to, if I had to choose, like my Instagram profile is like artist, you know?
Yeah.
That's first and foremost before being a designer. It's just, it's all about the art and creating. So, it's so dope. Oh my God. Y'all just.
She's going to cry.
Juan, do you have a question?
Question maybe no, but when I understand and the organization for Fashion Week telling the designers and the people you is here, My first reaction is entering the internet and investigation about you. Who is your work? And I only say, it's amazing. And maybe someday, I want to stay in your place. This is why it's my first reaction when I enter and investigate and other designers. All the time, I follow the many famous designers for, this is my idea. I think this is the idea that all the designers, new or old designers, this is the idea. They stay in the best place. Thank you.
Oh, I got a question now. So, like, when is that moment for you? When was the moment for you where you said, like, you know, like maybe stepped out on faith and was like, all right, I'm gonna quit the 9 to 5, or oh, I'm gonna, you know, put it all into the business, or like, you know?
I feel like, I mean, I mentioned that moment with my job, or you know, with Target and all that stuff. But I still did handbags freelance after that, and then took another full-time job. But it was basically after the company that told me they wanted to own my name, and when I was then eventually, like, he spent a year trying to fire me. My clients were like, no, we need her. I was doing Chemical Reaction and New York and Company. They're like, no, we need her. And then eventually he, you know, was like, no, I'm gonna get someone else because you're dedicating yourself to other things. And at that moment, I just knew, like, this isn't where I need to be. And I was still actually doing freelance up until, like, maybe 6 months ago. And I literally just, like, right now I'm full-time, nothing else. Like, my other projects are, like, here and there, but it's all in. You know, I'm constantly, like, you know, I don't have that steady paycheck or the steady freelance or whatever it is anymore. It's just all in. So that's really been, like, within the past 6 months to a year that I've just been going hard for myself and kind of restructuring how I do my business. I now in LA do a lot of rentals, like I mentioned, and I really feel like now I kind of like know my worth and I'm able to stand up for myself. Like, he used to get mad at me, like, we can miss an opportunity. I'm like, no, we have to do everything. But now I'm like, no, this is what it is. You have to pay or you have to rent, and I just kind of know what I bring to the table now. And that took a really, I mean, it took, 34, 35 years of my life to really get there. But, yeah, it's just kind of believing in yourself and just being very vulnerable and knowing that you can do it.
We're going to do some audience questions at this point. Sarah, can you grab one of the mics? And then these two designers will share a mic, if you guys don't mind. And then any questions, raise your hand, please. Sarah's going to come to you. Please say your name, and if you're in the fashion industry, what do you do? And then your question.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Alexandra. It's good to meet you. There you go. I am a transfer student from Ohio University. It's my second year here at CCAD. So I'm a sophomore now. I was doing like retail merchandising, and now I'm doing design with my business minor. Way more me. But one of my questions for you is, while you were going through design school, was there ever, at any point ever a time when you were like, I can't do this isn't for me, I don't know what to do? You just kind of had like a breakdown, or just like needed some kind of reassurance? And then if so, how did you build yourself up?
I mean, we had, you know, I had a group of girlfriends. I was actually in a sorority when I was in college. We actually started the chapter on our campus, so I was one of the founding members. But we would just like stay up all night and work together. You know, we'd have like work nights, and we would just be in the dorms or in a workroom, and we would just work together. And I think that kind of transferred over to us. It's just having people around you to create with, to bounce ideas off of. Absolutely. So you can find that crew to just create together and build together. I think that would be the best coping mechanism. Oh, y'all got each other. That's so cute.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Bianca Deloach, and I do styling, and I've just launched, very close to launching my vintage online shop. I love like vintage. I love, you know, anything authentic, and that's why I love you guys. Just any designer, local designer, and like I like what you said about staying small, just staying true to yourself and the authenticity of just true design. So one of my questions is kind of like a double question. What do you have any celebrity, like a dream celebrity? I don't know if you answer this or not, but that you want to design something specifically for?
I haven't dressed would be Rihanna. I don't know why it hasn't happened yet. She's done a couple polls, but I mean, she would just look amazing, obviously. So Rihanna is my next like go-to target queen.
And then real quick, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
5 years is like not a long time, but it is a long time. I guess just like I said before, being like, more well-known and just keep doing what I'm doing and, bring in more money and, just grow. I'm engaged, so be married, have a family, all that stuff. So have a baby, I guess, if I can fit that in. But yeah. Yeah.
Hi, I'm a junior in the fashion program here, and my question is twofold. So for your purses and things that are more affordable for the rest of us, how did you branch out and find companies to work, like to start your own business? Like, how did you find those places in China or wherever you have it productions made?
So when I was doing Kenneth Cole, so the company that I worked for that was full-time and that wanted to buy my name, there was different, Kenneth Cole Reaction License worked with different companies. So I then started working for another factory who eventually funded my handbags for me. So I was doing Kenneth Cole, which later turned into doing Nautica because that company lost a license. And then, he basically funded all of it. And yeah.
Okay, and then
So working in the industry, like side note, working in the industry, that's another, like I don't regret my schooling. I don't regret working in the industry, although it was tough on me. I learned so much and learned so much about branding and how to do hardware and just basic fashion business. So like working in the industry, like I remember a teacher also told me, like, don't expect to graduate and have a line and like you're gonna be famous. So getting that experience and meeting people and all that stuff is very important.
And my next question is for the other part of your line, for the celebrities. What piece was it that really like put you over the map and really like people saw and like that was kind of your platform too?
I think it would be the Nicki Minaj when she hosted the Rip the Runway a long time ago. That was when I think I first got like a pretty big platform to see my stuff. And she's been, one of those things for me for a while. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Hello, I'm Sanem, and I'm a senior at Upper Arlington High School. And I guess I can say I'm kind of an inspiring designer and like kind of preparing my portfolio for college right now. And I actually like to ask this to like all of you. What makes you passionate about your work, and what motivates you? Like, what inspires you?
Passion. So like I started in 6th grade, and I've always loved like Gianni Versace, John Galliano when he was designing for Christian Dior, all the dreamy stuff. My mom wasn't walking around in like $30,000 gowns, so I would only see that like in Vogue. So it was always like a fantasy world. It was always like a fantasy. It was just another life. It was something I wasn't really living every day. So like what was my passion was seeing women like Beyonce and
Exactly.
yeah, that's all that matters. Angelina Jolie, one of my other favorites. But besides like those, it was seeing like those women and having like that fantasy or that passion of one day wanting to dress them or having that in my everyday life. So now I could just go through my closet and be like, oh, ball gown, ball gown, ball gown. But that's not my everyday life. So I think it was really the fantasy that gave the passion for me.
That's awesome.
But I like different designers. I like the brands, the more famous brands. Each designer for me has the best and the bad. So it's so many difference for me favors, and I want a fantasy part for me the each brand or each designer. It's obvious I like the designer, the big designers, but all the time I follow and the designers. I am Latin, and in Latin America is two famous designers. I remember all the time for me is Carolina Herrera and Oscar de la Renta.
Sire, what inspires you?
I would say what inspired me really is kind of the same thing that you were saying. Have always been obsessed with pop culture.
I
And-
literally, like, when I get requests, I'm like, who's this person? Should I dress them? And he's like, oh, yeah, no.
I'm
He's
good with a no.
He's an entertainment encyclopedia.
That's what she calls me. And so when I was little, people would say, like, this is useless information. Like, why do you care about this stuff? And it's kind of interesting because it all works for my job now. but but really, like, fantasizing about a life that you have no clue about. I knew that I would work in entertainment. I didn't know exactly in what form because I was obsessed with so many different things. Ironically, I never thought that fashion would be one of them because even though when I was little, my grandmother used to make all of our clothes, so I got to go fabric shopping and all that stuff, but I hated the idea of sitting at a machine, and so I would never learn, and I can't sketch work. So I never thought that being in fashion was an option. So it never, in my head, it never was an option. It was always being in front of the camera and writing things. So that really sparked my passion as a kid, is just seeing like the Angelina Jolies and even like the Diana Rosses and the Chers and all that stuff. It was like that glamour that I had no clue about. I wanted to exist in that realm. And that has pushed me to where I am now.
I think for me it's a little bit different. I like my fiance makes fun of me all the time because he knows I'm like only a fan of Beyonce. Like in general, it's like Beyonce, like I don't, just get pretty excited for her stuff. And I've never been obsessed with pop culture. I've always kind of done my own thing. But for me, it's just as an artist, motivating myself to create something new and something different. When I see people knocking me off, or I think like, okay, this crown was cool, but how can I make it better? I mean, even for the Columbus show, I'm like, okay, how can I make this, like a new type of theme and have people feel excited for it? So I introduced like crystals and rhinestones. So just kind of, just inspiring myself to be a better artist and to top myself. And I'm not really inspired by any particular designer. Of course, I kind of see what's going on, but I kind of stay in like my tunnel vision and just focus on just being a better me.
Should that go to Lubna and Suzanne? Because we have a bunch of designers on stage right now. All of you are designers. Lubna, do you have inspiration?
We are designers by trade. You are too.
Yep.
I'm really obsessed with the ugly sweater thing. Like, I really want to see
I'm the
all
queen
of
of the ugly sweater. Ugly Christmas sweater.
Yes. That's
actually.
ugly Christmas.
Technically, it would be the ugly Christmas
Yes.
sweater.
I mean, that's like a cultural phenomenon now, is it not?
Right.
Like,
It absolutely
Urban
is.
Outfitters, like, get ready, ugly Christmas sweater season.
It's a thing.
I think
So
somebody
cool.
actually licensed that in the last
Yeah, I
5
think
years.
so,
Ugly
yeah.
Christmas sweater. It's like a thing.
Yeah,
Because I think for me, and I think kind of how I got into that was I love details. I love like embroidery and crochet, and so it's not like one designer, but it's like you know, you can see something, you know, in somebody walking down the street, a detail, you know, a finish. And I think that's why I also love teaching, is because I can see everybody's details and things, and I get really excited about that. And I think in my own work now, which isn't ugly Christmas sweaters, it's my own stuff, but hopefully it's, you know, it's a little bit
Not
different
ugly?
than it was. Not ugly. But I think it is. It's all about the details.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's where, when I look at fashion, I don't look at like a name or one person. I look at everything, and it's like, you know, it could be some random thing, but it's that one detail that's beautiful that I'm so inspired by to create something else.
I think to be inspired by something, it's like an emotional thing, right? Like, we were just talking, I don't remember who I was talking to the other night at the Passport to Fashion event, but I think it was Darcy, actually, one of our designers for that evening. And we talked about, you know, what it takes to be inspired. And, you know, this is her first time showing with Fashion Week this year. And it was for a non-finale, non-high tea event, but it was another programmed show. And I said to her, you know, why this year? And she said, I've never been so much more inspired. And so it's such a, you know, to be inspired as a designer is such an emotional thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, just today I actually moved things around in my office, and everybody was like kind of laughing at me, like, why are you moving your furniture around? And I said, well, I need to move my trend board right in front of where I'm sitting, because I needed to see all the color. Because we trend forecast for our clients, right? So I have a wall of just trends of spring summer 19, and they're all immediate orders, right? So I had to move it right in front of me. I moved everything else out of the way, and I moved the inspirational pieces right in front of me, because even if I'm not designing right at that moment, I needed to be inspired. And so whether it's color or whether somebody else is, you know, kind of forecasting for you, but what you make of it is your own.
Absolutely.
You know, it's an emotional connection, wouldn't you agree?
And that's a weird thing about trend forecasting. I did a lot of that with my bags. It's like I'm not really inspired by a lot of things I see in the stores, because I already thought about those trends like a year ago or 2 years ago. I can remember even with my handbag clients, I'd be like, this is a new trend, this is what you got to do. Because it was mass market, they're like, oh no, we don't want to do that. And then like a year later, can we do this bag? I'm like, I designed that for you a year ago. Oh, it must have not looked the same. I'm like, no, it was exactly that bag, but you didn't think it was a trend then. But you know, that's the interesting thing about trend forecasting, is like you have to see things before other people see it. So it's hard to stay inspired when it's not just readily in your face, you know?
Are you guys familiar with Fashion Snoops?
Yes.
Do you ever use that? So trend forecasting has kind of become its own world of just science. There's like a formula behind it now. It's not just colors and vibes. It's really like, it's a mood, it's a personality, and it's by demographic, by, you know, within that, it's by age group.
It's like kind of like WGSN. Yeah. We actually switched in my last full-time job from WGSN to Fashion Snoops, because they had more like handbags and stuff. Yeah.
It's so cool, because it's and so much in that. If you guys aren't familiar with it, you should really look it up. It is a paid service, but there are a lot of free tools through Snoops. And one of the designers I work with, I think she's still here, Ibalise, I think she's in here somewhere. We talk about Snoops. It's expensive, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you know, they tell you what's out there, but again, fashion is
studying stuff all the time.
All the time. They're studying, you know, a lot of colors, a lot of like, why do you see a lot of pastels come in one season? Why do you see a lot of earth tones in other season? It's because of natural resources. It's what's going on in the world. It's our culture. And it's all kind of come together, and it all inspires fashion.
Yeah, and they watch the streets of like, you know, in Europe and, you know, Asia. It's cool. Yeah.
Guys, do you realize that we were just in Laurel Dewitt's living room and listening to her speak? She is amazing and inspirational.
Besties.
As the rest of these designers up here and our hosts. Let's give them a round of applause, please.
Thank you guys for coming.
We also we want to thank CCAD as we come to a close. We are coming to a close. Sorry. We want to thank CCAD for hosting. We definitely want to thank Susan Quinlan for, where are you, Susan? I know you're here.
She's back there somewhere.
For coordinating this whole thing. You know, and you know, our hosts, our amazing hosts, Lubna and Suzanne. Thank you so much.
Thanks for
because
having
they're
us.
fashion designers.
This
they
was
know
probably
the right
the
questions.
funnest one.
The what?
This was probably like the funnest panel.
This is so fun.
You guys were just so real.
Yes.
Like, that was awesome.
Authenticity. That's what we're about.
See is what you get.
So if you, as we leave, if you are gonna wait a little around to talk with anybody here, please make it quick. We've had a long day. We have a long day tomorrow. You know, a couple seconds, hello if you want to, if Laurel doesn't sneak out the back door. And then we'll just go ahead and try to exit the premises by 10 p.m. Susan, is that right? Okay. anyhow, thank you so much for coming out. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
guys.
guys.
Oh,
Thank you,
nice
Laurel.
seeing you.
Thank you, Sire.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you,
me.
Juan.
Thanks to our
Thank you,
local
Julie.
designers. Yeah.
Thank you.